Hi, I'm Ted. Welcome to the place, the thing where we put the play back in Shakespeare. Today I want to show you 3 techniques that I use to help students develop familiarity with the language before you even get them to start trying to figure out what it means. Okay, so I'm a huge believer in scaffolding teaching. I think that's probably the #1 secret, is to try to work on a progression. I still remember when I was learning to be a whitewater kayaker, and I'd gone with a friend of mine to this rapid, and I had a decent roll. It was okay, it wasn't great. And so we were in the rapids, and I got upside down, and I couldn't roll. I ended up swimming out of my boat and getting over to shore, and it was a play spot, so you can keep going back to that same spot. And so, Josh is out there, doing all these tricks, and I'm sitting in the eddy going, I think I'm just going to work on my roll, and my confidence was kind of shaken, and it's hard to get out there and do all the play stuff. So at one point, Josh was, let's go to the other side of the river, and he just, follow me, go across. And so I got my kayak and, ferried across the river in the calmer water, and that wasn't so bad. And he plays in the hole on the other side, and I'm still kind of, working on my kayak roll a little bit and playing in the current. He's like, oh, let's get back over the other side. Let's go up a little bit higher this time. And so I follow him back over, and sure enough, I was fine. And just doing those 2 moves, it sort of brought that confidence back and worked on that progression. So I always think about that when I'm teaching, and trying to ask students right away to understand very sophisticated language immediately is sort of a turnoff. It makes it really difficult. So there's the 3 techniques that I use just to develop the familiarity with the language. The first one, I call it text surfing. And it's something about just trying to work on parsing the language so that it speaks within the natural rhythms of it. And if your students are anything like mine, the first time they read it, they'll come to the end of the line, and then that will be it. They'll pause even if there's no punctuation there, and it just kind of sounds really choppy and very flat. And so this activity helps develop that familiarity of the phrasing of the language, which is how we organize meaning. So when we speak, we parse our meaning with the inflections of our voice a lot of times. So if I go on a canoe trip this weekend, I need to remember to bring my canoe, my paddle, my PFD, and my splash gear. And so when there's an incomplete thought, our voice is going to go up until we finally reach the end of the point at which our inflection goes down. And so that's something that I find I have to teach students, especially when they're reading, because they just stay at the same level the entire time. And so, one, I want to work on teaching the skill, but at the same time, by doing an activity where they're thinking more about the inflections and the phrasing of the language, they don't have to worry about the meaning. But by reading, it's becoming more familiar and more familiar, so that when we actually get to the meaning and trying to figure out exactly what's being said, it doesn't sound so strange. So I tell students in this, I want you to read the text, and I usually have them working with partners just for the social aspect of it, and it allows them to hear as well, because it can get tiring reading. And I have them switch off when they come to major punctuation, but like a period, end of a sentence really. But what I tell them is, I want you to read, and when you come to a comma, I want you to put a lilt to your voice going up, and actually with your hand as well. Make your hand go up, and when you come to the end of a sentence or period or exclamation point, go down with your hand, and then switch off. And so it should look something like this. I got this passage from Hamlet here. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that is befitted to bear our hearts in grief, our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe, yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wiser sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore, our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress to this warlike state, have we, as 'twere with a defeated joy, with an auspicious and dropping eye, with mirth in funeral, and the dirge of marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. And there's a semicolon there, but kind of the end of the thought. And so we just have students do that, and we'll do this for 4 or 5 minutes as a warm-up as they go through. And our goal, again, is hopefully we work on parsing the meaning and get the inflections of our voice correctly, but really, even more importantly, we're just hearing it and becoming more familiar with the language before we have to really work about understanding it. Okay, scaffolding up a little bit more complex, I refer to as the traveling passage. And this requires a little bit more space, hopefully, if you have it. Sometimes I'll go to the cafeteria if I don't have enough, if I have a crowded classroom, or if I can, I try to get to the theater. But now we're going to have students walk and move while they read. And again, it's getting out of our seats, it's moving around. Hopefully it's a little bit more dynamic, but the concept is still the same. We want to work at parsing the meaning on the punctuation. So I tell students, you're going to, when you come to a comma, you're going to change direction. When you come to a period, you come to a full stop. When you come to an exclamation point, you're going to jump, and when you come to a question mark, you kneel. What they do isn't as critical. You know, the question mark with the kneel just seems kind of appropriate, and the exclamation point seems like it's appropriate to jump. But the change of direction is really sort of getting the feel, not only of the language and the changing of the thoughts, but it parses the meaning. It sort of breaks it up.
More stone. No earth.
Yeah, it's a great activity, again, to do at the beginning while you're just trying to get the structure of the language down and the rhythms of it. And I usually tell students as they're doing, you know, just go. I don't care if you understand a word. That's not the point. And as they grow more and more familiar with the rhythm of the language and the sound of it, it just becomes a whole lot less complicated. And the third familiarity exercise, I like to call it, inversion improv. One of the things that students say about Shakespeare that makes it tough is that it just sounds funny, you know, and not funny in a good way, but funny in a bad way, like spoiled milk. And so one way to talk about the familiarity is, like, a lot of times he'll talk in inversion, like he'll flip the subject and the object around for rhythm reasons or emphasis, but it sounds weird until I start telling you, well, it's exactly how Yoda speaks, you know, it's exactly, you know, he'll put the subject at the end, you know? And so I actually will do an improv activity where, you know, give them a situation, typical improv, where they have to speak in inversion. And so give them a situation, okay, you three are on your way to a concert and the car breaks down. You have 2 minutes to improv a situation about how you're going to resolve the situation and get to the concert. And so, you know, flat our tire is, do, what shall we? And then just say, okay, you have to speak that inversion, and they have to resolve the issue. And usually this is helpful for a class that may not be too shy. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to get up there and improv, especially if they're feeling reluctant. But if you've got a class that, you know, are love to get out of their seats and get up, doing that improv activity is funny, it's entertaining, and at the same time, it doesn't, you know, make Shakespeare's not going to sound weird anymore. They're building those theater skills and having fun on their feet, and you can anchor it in that inversion so it doesn't seem weird anymore. So there's 3 activities that you can do. Again, the emphasis is just to develop the familiarity with the language. Yes, you're building some skills, but not getting into meaning yet. You just want to sort of work on making it less bizarre, less strange to students. All right, best of luck. Let us know how it goes in the comments. Love to hear from you. If you've got any questions and things that you'd like to see, by all means, love to hear it. And please subscribe if you haven't. Hit that like button. And until next time, I hope you're putting the fun back in Shakespeare.